everyone. You can see my credentials aren't quite as good as my partners here. I feel like I need to go back to school, but I'm going to do my best tonight anyway. And I'm going to take a little bit different twist on the conversation that we're going to have tonight. Do I have to pick this up? There we go. Larry gave you a little bit of information about Peoples, but we serve right around the city of Rochester in 5 and 6 counties around here. About 16,000, over 16,000 members, and our power supplier is Elaine Power Cooperative. Elaine is headquartered in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and this map here kind of shows a footprint of the Elaine service area. About 600,000 people get power from Elaine Cooperative, and they serve in Illinois, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Elaine right now has resources, as David Strum indicated. 93% of the energy resources come from coal right now at Elaine. The coal that our members receive and those 600,000 people that I talked about. They have about 1,500 megawatts in coal, natural gas, and hydro. Even more significantly, though, Elaine Power is a national leader in rural electric cooperatives in renewable energy. I'm going to direct your attention to this little chart right up here. If you can see that, about 37% of their renewable energy is wind. They have landfill gas, methane digesters, and hydropower. Now, the state of Minnesota has a requirement that we be 25% renewable by the year 2025. Elaine will be 10% renewable by next year, and they are well on the road to meeting these renewable requirements. And that's an important point that you need to know as we move further into this presentation. And Mr. Strum set it up, as he mentioned, that your electric bills have been going up higher, and with the climate change legislation will go up even more higher. That's part of the reason why I agreed to speak here tonight, because this is an important issue to us and an important issue to our members, in that we're concerned about what your electric bills look like too. And in the past few years, there's been a number of things that have been impacting your electric bills. You've probably seen them go up more in the more recent years than you have probably over the past 15 or 20 years. And part of those reasons are the volatility in coal prices. Right now, coal is sold in the international market. It's shipped to China and India. So that has affected the price of coal, and it's gone up. Another major impact has been rail transportation costs. In 2006, those costs went up by 93%. We're located in the Midwest. The coal we get is from North Dakota and Wyoming. It comes in by rail or barge, and those costs have gone up significantly. So that has impacted prices. We're also seeing stricter environmental regulations. In the past few years, Elaine has invested over $400 million in cleaning up and making the coal plants that they have more energy friendly to our environment. Yes, sir.
Can you turn the whiteboard towards where you're speaking?
Yes, I'm sorry, sir.
Thank you.
And lastly, I mentioned that Elaine's renewable resources are growing. You need to understand that renewable resources are more expensive sources of energy than the coal generation. Then there are a few more additional changes that we're seeing. Some is the economy that's hit us right now. As demand charges go down, that also affects our costs. We think that's going to be a temporary impact on costs. And another one is I'm going to call it the attitude about, I don't want this in my backyard. If you live in Rochester, you've heard about the CapEx 2020 project, the need for more transmission line, and that line itself will help us at Elaine Power Cooperative as well as 10 other utilities. But there are costs associated with putting that in, and the costs are growing because people don't want it in their area. And finally, climate change legislation is impacting the cost of electricity. Climate change legislation, this is a political, the two speakers before me has indicated that. This is very much a political issue. The studies came out, the Al Gore movie came out, and our politicians decided this was an issue that they needed to deal with. And so they're supporting a cap and trade policy. At the same time, not too long ago, the courts determined that the Environmental Protection Agency also has the authority to regulate greenhouse gases. So we are sitting here as an electric utility looking at these options. Either Congress is going to regulate it or the Environmental Protection Agency is going to regulate it. And we've looked at those choices and said, we'd much rather have Congress regulate it because we can bring you, our members, and the general public in to help influence what that legislation looks like. And again, I'll just repeat, Dairyland is very vulnerable to the cap and trade legislation simply because at the present point in time we're 93% coal. We're doing district meetings throughout our service area where we invite our members to come in and listen to issues that are going on about our cooperative. And it reminded me, one of our attendees asked, what is cap and trade? They didn't understand this concept. Cap is a national limit or a cap on the amount of greenhouse gases that we would be allowed to enter into the environment or into the atmosphere. And the legislation talks about putting a cap in place if it passes as it exists today in 2012, and then that cap, whatever it is, would be required to go down in the next 50 years after that. And trade is any emission that is above that cap, any carbon emission above that cap then, is something that we as a utility would either have to eliminate or purchase an allowance to pay for that. So here's a graph that I'm going to try and do a little bit better explanation of this. This blue line along the top would be as business as usual for an electric utility, where we generally grow a little bit. We have a few more members that come on and take electricity. We also, our homes are getting more technology. We're using more electricity. So this would be slow growth, business as usual. This legislation then would put a cap on how much carbon emissions we could release into the air. And notice here, this cap is going to go down over a period of years. So we would be allowed to release some carbon emissions, but the cap would be lower than what we're using right now. There are 3 options that we can use to address this issue as an electric utility. The first is we can reduce our emissions by simply going all renewable or building enough renewable energy that we can meet the cap that is being placed on us. And again, we're trying to do that, but remember that I said those renewable energy sources are more expensive than the carbon resources that we already have in place. We've already made those investments in those coal plants.